I'm always in the profile encourage position when I start the streams, because I have to look over to that part of the computer. So it's always a profile. And now it's fighting me on the recording part. So get that fixed. Start the recording. And in theory, we are on the internet to the world.
Woo!
With 8 minutes to go.
Behold my Dia de los Muertos hair.
Your what?
Dia de los Muertos. Today is the Dia de los Muertos. It is
Day of the Dead.
Yes, it is the Day of the Dead.
Who's dead?
My Dia de los Muertos hair.
Is that the day after Halloween, or?
Yes, it's always November 1st, which happens to always be the day after Halloween. It is the day of calavera sugar skulls and ofrescas, and for white people watching Coco, so you know what's going on. Because that seems to be like the most, popular culture accessible way of explaining Dia de los Muertos.
For white people watching what?
Coco. It's a Disney movie. It's for children.
Never heard of it.
Oh, don't watch it without some tissues.
Okay.
My cables are twisty. Gotta untwist my cables. Boom.
Okay. Looks like
Untwisted my cables.
Looks like we're live on.
Nope, my cables are still twisty.
Looks like we're live on Facebook. No, live on YouTube.
Now I can't hear it because my cables were twisty.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I don't think she can hear me.
Twisty cables. Oh, you're not in all the way. That's why I can't hear you.
I'm just going to shut my mouth about that. Not in all the way.
My cables are still twisty. They twisted. Can't.
Cables do that. That's their one joy in life, is to be twisted. Okay, we're broadcasting to the world. Did I have anything in pre-show?
I didn't even look at the show notes.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to the mountains last weekend. We didn't do a show. I didn't go to the mountains last weekend. We still didn't do a show because I had told everybody we'll take the weekend off. So we did, but I had COVID symptoms not last week, but the previous week leading into the weekend where we didn't do the show. I had COVID symptoms. I had fever. I had aches and pains, and I had breathing difficulties. So I called the doctor, woke him up. The doctor, is there nothing I can take? And they gave me the COVID test. It's the NAAT, the NAT test, which I sort of remembered the.
Is that the one where you blow into the thing with a little ping pong ball?
No, it's nucleic acid acceleration test, I think is what they call it. Now it's a up your nose swab, and they also did a throat swab.
COVID test.
COVID test, yeah.
I'm thinking you're talking about like lung capacity test. Never mind.
Oh, I do those. Yeah, I do those all the time too. Let's see. For those who are listening in stereo, I'm swinging myself to the right a little bit. Not politically, just acoustically. Swinging Jen a little bit to the left. Because that's where we appear.
I belong.
That's where we appear on the monitor. It's only
where I belong.
For picking
where I belong.
That. Test came back negative. It took. I had the symptoms on Monday. Took the test on Tuesday. Was supposed to leave for the mountains on Wednesday, but everybody said bad idea. Cindy came charging back. She was already up there. She came charging back on Wednesday. So we thought, okay, well, if the tests come back negative, we will go on Thursday and at least have the weekend up there. And my doctor said, bad idea. And then we were out on the Greenway, and we have a friend who's an emergency room doctor who we pass on the Greenway. She's walking her dogs all the time. And so I'm telling her the story, and I'm saying, I'm guessing that even though the test came back negative, and now we just learned the test was negative, this test has a 30% false negative potential. And as I understand it, the reason that's 30% false negative is because it's hard to get the thing up your nose far enough to actually catch some COVIDs. So 30% of the time that you have it, they still don't get it on the swab. So that's the way I understand it. So we're relating this story to this ER doc, and she says, no, don't go visit friends in the mountains this weekend. You could be actively infected with COVID and not know it and give it to everybody. So as it turns out, no symptoms further developed. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean you didn't have it. I guess.
Yeah. I don't know.
There are plenty of totally asymptomatic people or people with minor symptoms that come and go real quick. So I don't know. I don't know if I've been a COVID person or not, but if I'm coughing and stuff, I still have some residual whatever's been bothering me pulmonarily. And so I cough a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's COVID or not. Fortunately, you can't get it through the Zoom screen.
I will just stay right here on my side of the Zoom screen and not pick up your COVID. I had a really bad allergy that I was worried was COVID. So I went, and since I've been contacted by my study, I could go get tested. I went and got tested, and it was negative. It's just a bad allergy.
Yeah. Which test did they? Hey, you can drink water with one hand. You could be president.
I could be.
Which version of the test did they give you?
They offered me the rapid. I said, nah, son. And then they stuck the thing all the way up into my brain, and it took 3 days to get the results.
Yeah.
And it came back negative because I didn't want a rapid test. I didn't want anything with I don't have anywhere to be. If I've got it at this point, so does my entire quarantine. So I figured we could take the time to do it right. Got tested, came back negative. I called my doctor. My doctor was like, you only had one symptom. And the one symptom I had was a lot of mucus, a lot of nose dripping. And I didn't have a fever. I didn't have loss of smell or taste. I didn't have a change in my smell or taste. I didn't have cough. I didn't have any lower respiratory anything. And the doctor was like, I would have told you not to get tested. And to be fair, my doctor did tell me not to get tested. He was like, don't bother. It's not COVID. But, you sit there and you think about it and you go, but it could be. And you panic yourself and you go get tested. And then it's not COVID, like your doctor said. And so my doctor has concluded that it is an allergy. We don't know what to. Sometime later, when the pandemic is gone, I'll get another skin test. I did take Zyrtec, and it did seem to eventually control the symptoms. Zyrtec is supposed to kick in within 30 minutes, and it didn't control the symptoms until 2 hours later. But oh man, so I was warned because I took Zyrtec because it was what we had in the house. And they warned me that the come down from Zyrtec is like your whole body itches because it deals with your histamine receptors in your skin. And so when you're coming off of it, your skin's histamine receptors reawaken, or I don't know what they do. So you get really itchy everywhere. And I thought, whatever. And then I found myself 2 days later, which was clearly because I took one Zyrtec pill and that kicked the allergy and we were fine. 2 days later, which was apparently how long it stayed in my system. I'm talking to people and I'm just scratching everywhere. It was a whole thing. And I had to be like, I don't have lice. I'm coming down off of Zyrtec.
I don't know if I've ever taken Zyrtec. I don't think.
The internet, my pharmacist, my doctor, everybody highly recommends don't. Unless none of the other allergy meds work or don't work, and Zyrtec's the only one that does work.
Yeah.
which is clearly the case for the people I live with, hence why Zyrtec was in the house. But don't. Like, if you can do it with Claritin, Allegra, or Benadryl, don't do Zyrtec. The itching is... It wasn't painful. It was socially unacceptable.
Claritin doesn't do anything for me. I take a little bit every day, 10 milligrams, just because the doctor says to, and Singulair, all for trying to tamp down the allergies. The only thing that really works with a wallop is the Benadryl. And it doesn't knock me out like it knocks most people out, I guess. So I'm lucky.
Benadryl doesn't knock me out. I wasn't able to contain these allergy symptoms on Benadryl. I tried the Benadryl the first day I had the allergy symptoms, and it helped, but not a lot. And then the second day, I took Zyrtec, and 2 hours later, which is like, 4 times the kick-in time that it's supposed to do, boom, all the symptoms were completely gone. And it wasn't as itchy as poison ivy. I mean, poison ivy is by far itchier, but I was still scratching, and it still looked like I was, had something going on. So
okay. I should tell the audience that we are going to have some surprise guests, and one of them is working on getting tuned in now, and I don't know which one.
Scott Huffman, so it says.
Oh, it's Scott. Hey, Scott, keep pushing buttons until we get your
how's it going?
Picture and sound. Are you just going to be sound for us, or there's the picture.
There we go.
Excellent. Scott Huffman is a candidate for Congress from 13th District?
Yep, for Congressional District 13.
Which is what part of the state?
It's kind of in the middle. It covers Rowan County,
he's up here
Davie County, Alamance, Randolph, Person, Caswell, Lee, Chatham, and a little bit of Iredell County, a total of 10 counties.
Okay, and our next surprise guest is it pronounced Schoen?
Yes, how you doing?
Glad to have you join in. You guys are all courtesy of Elizabeth Crudup, who had talked to you about some things that were going on in Alamance County yesterday and said you had stories that you wanted to get out. And, here we are with a live podcast surprising you.
All right.
And an audience of in the millions, of course. Actually, an audience in the dozens.
3.
Yeah, at best.
4.
But it's worth spending some time, and then you can tell everybody to tune in, and they can pick this up on the replay later on. And
look at that, wearing a mask. See, now that's responsible.
Yeah.
Hey, I got mine. I'm just in my car.
Yeah. Say, I'm wearing a whole house instead of a mask.
Yeah.
Right. I see. Yellow. Yes. Good.
Okay, so now I need to figure out which one of these Zoom things I want to have
I'll pull
here.
up the show notes. Can we please zoom through the initial bits, which is how to tune in for us, so that we can get these gentlemen talking?
Yeah, I think we'll... there we go. It's not quite what I want.
Ladies and gentlemen of the podcast, we have had our surprise guest show up, and so now you're getting to hear some of what usually you don't hear because we're not live when these things go down. Gary was supposed to go to the mountains last weekend. I was going to give him some crap for the fact that he's going next weekend, which means he's going to miss the post-vote, post-tally, post-election day fallout. He's decided to give us an extra week to rest on that. But you know what? That may be the healthiest approach, because I'm not sure we're going to have an answer next week anyway.
Okay, so we do have to play the music and do the intro, because this is a podcast. It's a show. It's fun. We're wacky. It's like your morning team. So we'll do that, and then we'll dispense with the other stuff and find out what your story is. But here is the music. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show.
Just cut the crap, kid. I want to know what the big talk's all about.
I don't think we should talk about this.
Then we talk all night.
Let's give them something to talk about.
Another night of hearing myself talk.
Stop me if you've Heard this one.
Talk is cheap, yo.
Yeah.
With a little less talk and a lot more action.
I don't wanna
Talk to me.
So knock it off and quit the yakety yak.
Let's tell it like it is and how it could be. How it was and, of course, how it should be.
keep that motor mouth moving morning, noon, and night. And if you keep on talking, baby, you know you're bound just to drive me away.
Dancing is allowed during the music. I'm Gary Pierce and Jen Spart.
And from the Yellow Room on the border of Carborough and the People's Republic of Chapel Hill, sequestered at the foot of Mount Okinichi, which despite Mount Belzoni actually is a real mountain, and on the side of the hill with the chapel up top, I'm Jen, also host of NannyCast.
And this is episode 120, Daylight Before our special guests were sprung on us at the last minute, it was going to be daylight savings. That's what we were going to talk about, the important thing to talk about. And the title of the show is Fall Back and Stand By. That actually may kind of work. I don't know. We'll see. November 1st, 2020.
And for those of you who don't know the saying, it's spring forward and fall back.
Yeah, but it's also stand back and stand by. So I put those two together, making fall back and stand by. That is an example of how clever I can be. That's the maximum of how clever I can be. Okay, our two special guests that we didn't know we were going to have 30 minutes ago, but here they are. Scott, you are on the line first, so I'll let you introduce yourself. And don't tell us what happened yet. We'll get the story from both of you in a minute, but just tell everybody who you are.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to be a surprise guest on your show. It's a great opportunity to talk to folks and get the word out. My name is Scott Huffman. I'm a Navy veteran, a small business owner. I do information technology, cybersecurity. I'm running for Congress here in North Carolina District 13. We've never had a Navy veteran or a working class candidate serve in this seat before. I'm running against a Republican, a millionaire Republican, Ted Budd, who doesn't understand working class folks who are struggling paycheck to paycheck during this pandemic. And I'm hoping to be elected to District 13 as your next representative, as that public servant we desperately need representing all of us in Washington, D.C. So thanks for letting me come on the show at such a short notice.
Have you ever run for or held political office before?
No, this is my first time running for Congress. I was inspired by my daughter so many years ago. It was right after the 2016 election, and she was upset about what was happening with the election of the extremism within the Republican Party gaining power in our country. And I told her as a father, don't worry, it'll be okay. We'll get through this. Just running for Congress was not on my bucket list. Shortly after her concerns, and I started an activist group called Indivisible Charlotte. I grew that group to over 4,000 folks. The Indivisible is a nationwide movement that targeted our members of Congress and forced them to listen to us during the beginning of this Trump administration. Sadly, they didn't. In fact, we held many rallies outside of Senator Thom Tillis's office. We raised a billboard outside his office for not meeting with the folks. I was parked by a truck and blocking all that sunlight. Let's see if we can fix that. We put up a billboard right outside of Thom Tillis's office, listing him like a milk carton of a missing senator. And we targeted him for not holding in-person town halls. He has been a disaster for North Carolina. He voted against, he blocked Medicaid from being expanded in North Carolina. He blocked pretty much anything that would help North Carolina. He flip-flopped on the money that was being taken out of Fort Bragg to build this wall between our southern border. But my activism led me eventually to run for Congress because I just didn't like the direction of what was happening. I'm running against an extreme Republican, Ted Budd, who won't speak out about the oppressive nature of this presidency. As a veteran, I was called a sucker and a loser by Trump. As a veteran, I was upset that bounties were being placed on our military folks, and Trump wouldn't speak out or pick up the red phone and call Putin. So, these are all just a multitude of examples of why we have failed leadership. But the worst example of all really is the 230-some thousand dead Americans, because we don't have a national pandemic strategy to defeat this pandemic. And so that's kind of how I got here. So, I appreciate the time to talk, and you'll find as a politician, we'll probably like to talk a lot. So I'll go ahead.
I was going to ask if you learned how to do this dump speech stuff like on the fly, or if you had that capability before you decided to be a candidate.
Well, as a nerd, we're socially awkward people. We understand computers, and I was always that socially awkward person in a crowd of people that have a great conversation with a plan. So yeah, it's all on the fly. I've learned how to talk to people about the issues, because you have to be a really good listener first. If you're not listening to their concerns, you don't know how to help them. You're just taking up space, and that's what Ted Budd has done. He doesn't listen to anybody. He doesn't accept their concerns. And what's troubling is he voted against COVID relief packages that would have helped our district, all while his family is out of Winston-Salem, the Budd Group, was able to get almost a $5 million PPP loan. And what's really sad about that is more people in this congressional district have filed for unemployment and voted for him in the last two elections. So we've got to turn this around. So many people are hurting, and because of their pain and the lack of leadership in Washington, I started a program called Instant Impact Program, and we've helped to feed over 15,000 people in this district. And tomorrow we will do another funding opportunity, and we'll feed another 15,000 people before November 3rd.
Do you have a snowball's chance in District 13 of actually winning this thing?
Well, I believe that, it's unfortunate that COVID-19 restricted me from really getting out there to meet folks. So I believe we have a chance. It's an R6 district. Originally, before it was redrawn in December of last year, it was an R15, which meant Ted Budd had a 15-point advantage. Well, now he has a 6-point advantage in the newly drawn district. And I hope with my IT experience of reaching folks out through the digital media, social media experience I have as an IT guy, I think has really helped me get my message out there. And it's unfortunate that we have this pandemic right now, but I think it's really made people do research on their candidate. I've actually been standing at polling places, one in Davie County, which is Ted Budd's home territory, and I had Republicans coming out after they voted saying they had voted for me. So that makes me feel kind of good. Our strategy really is to target unaffiliated voters who somewhat lean Democrat during the previous years. But we really think, because so many Americans have died, especially in this district that I hope to represent, we've had over 425 citizens die. And in fact, in my home county of Rowan, a husband and wife were holding hands as they passed away in the Novant Memorial Hospital up in Salisbury. Really sad. And Ted Budd says that he understands what people are going through. He actually said in an interview that was aired yesterday on WXII that he thinks people are intelligent enough to know to wear a mask. Well, it would be great if we had intelligent people in the White House that actually told people they need to wear a mask in order to save their lives. And so he doesn't care. Dangerous men like Ted. Whoops, I may have dropped there just for a second.
You're back.
Well, like I was saying, Ted Budd and Donald Trump are dangerous.
And he's dropped out again.
You should not be rewarded second term in office. So that's kind of where we're at. We can't reward those people.
So Scott, you are in friendly territory here. We are a left-leaning podcast. There's no doubt about that. You are among friends. But I have to mention to Jen for just a second, these guys are really good at this stuff, aren't they? we had Jenna Wadsworth on a couple weeks ago, and it's like, you guys know how to talk.
I've got a slightly smaller list of terms to clarify for him than I did for Miss Wadsworth.
Okay. Well, tell you what, let's I would love to learn more about running for Congress and stuff, but that's not the top of the agenda, and we have another guest to introduce. So, Sean Green, can you talk for 15 minutes uninterrupted as well?
I can, but I'll try not to.
Tell us who you are.
Okay, I'm Sean Green. Some people will know me as Haiku. So you'll hear multiple things about me, but I am a full-time activist. I am also a full-time public relations representative. I currently represent people for change out of Alamance. And yeah, and then in my day job, I have one of those too. I work like 4 jobs at this point, but with actually kids and young adults. Was that 15 minutes?
Actually, you I was trying to get
That's succinct.
I was trying to get some.
That's what that is, and I like it. He
Yeah.
got to the point. He hit it, and he moved along.
I was trying to get some technical stuff done here in the background, and
Oh, got you.
and as a PR guy, you should be able to go forever.
I'll say, for those, I'll throw you some softball questions. For those people in the Triangle who've never really looked outside of their local Applebee's, where is Alamance County? East, west, north, or south?
Okay, so I live in Durham, and it's going westward about 35, 40 minutes. Yeah. And I live in Durham. Since we trying to get some technical stuff done, I'm originally from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which is going the opposite way, further east. It's like east of Raleigh and in between Raleigh and Greenville. And yeah, I grew up in what's called a slum there. And I moved to Greenville. I went to East Carolina University. I graduated in 2015, stayed there for a little bit, and then I moved to Durham. And then I just ended up becoming, through divine timing and through divine planning, I just ended up meeting up people out here in this area and serving with them and protecting with them. And next thing you know, I've never lived anywhere in Alamance County, but I mean, I feel like a resident at this point. I'm here more than I'm at home, so.
And for Mr. Huffman, you said District 13. For the people in the Triangle who've never left their nearest neighborhood Applebee's, which cardinal direction is that one going to be?
Well, District 13 is really in the middle of North Carolina. It's like the Piedmont area, but it does go up 85, goes out 40 towards Durham, and then it part of the counties connect up to the Virginia state line. So if you had a chair that had fallen over, you would have the back down like this, Alamance going up, and then Pearson County doing that. But you can go to my website, scotthuffman.com. We have a current congressional map there. And this is a new map. The old map is still Forsyth, Guilford, Davie, Davidson, and Iredell, and parts of Rowan. But once the election occurs here on November 3rd, the new map becomes the new district.
So like most candidates, the first thing you encounter when you go to their website is the fundraising.
I'm telling you, you cannot run for political office unless you raise money. God forbid you manage to run a $0 campaign.
Well, let me just point out the stark difference between me and my congressional opponent, Ted Budd. I have made a pledge not to accept any corporate PAC money. I have kept the average donation is around $20 to $25. His average donation, he accepts all kind of money from corporate PAC people. He claimed that he was running as a Washington outsider, but he quickly became a Washington insider based on all the money he has received from lobbyists, corporate PACs, other campaign PACs. If you go to opensecrets.org and you type in his name, he has quickly become a shining star within the Republican Party on donations in the millions of his bank account. So he has clearly outmatched my campaign. But all of my donations are transparent. If you donate $1, I report it to the FEC, so you know who is donating to, and that's what kind of makes me different than him, because I won't let anybody buy my vote. The only people who get to control my vote are the people I represent.
I don't want to derail the conversation because we want to get to what happened in Alamance County yesterday, but you had mentioned you don't take corporate PAC money. There are two kinds of PACs. There's corporate PACs and then just kind of ordinary PACs. And you'll take money from a political action committee, but not a corporate political action committee.
Well, to clarify that, if you're a labor group or a teachers union, then yes, that's a working class representation, and those people need a voice. But if you're like a PAC that was set up, I think it's called a 527 or something, or whatever the actual number is, and we don't know who your donors are. Okay, with a labor union group, we know who their donors are. They're their members. But with these other PACs out there that we're seeing, like the Freedom Caucus or the Conservative Reserve Fund, or just these made up names that really lead back to just one or two rich old guys, okay, that really want to change the narrative and control our government instead of having the people represent our government.
Okay. So to the question at hand, yesterday, and Jen was saying she didn't hear the news story. I was following it. I heard about it. Yesterday in Alamance County, there was a march. I think it was the Black Lives Matter march, officially.
No, it was technically
It was for voting, guys.
Thank you.
Black Lives Matter. Sean can probably talk on that matter.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a march to get people safely to the polls. I mean, most of our participants do center around Black Lives Matter, but we invited Republicans to come along with us, no matter what your affiliation is, or no matter who you are voting for, just making sure that everybody gets safely to the polls, and can exercise their right to vote in this country. So it's all about unity. It wasn't necessarily a Black event, but we did want to lift up Black stories, because white people in this country have never had a time where they couldn't vote, or they've never had, and we can separate and say women didn't at one point too, but that was women. So we can just throw all of that out. Like white men, the forefathers, they all have always had opportunity to vote. Black people haven't. So we are focusing on the fact that Black votes matter. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we did, our organizers did reach out to any and everybody that wanted to come and feel safe going to the polls.
All right. So the idea was to, go ahead, Jen.
And I'm going to throw in another question, which I got taught, never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. Why yesterday? Why October 31st for this march?
So you'll see one of our leading guys, one of the greatest comrades that I know, and my brother, Kanai Adan. He was dressed up as a guardian angel. We had another one of my comrades named Esther, and he was dressed up as Wyatt Outlaw, who was a centerpiece of in that community, or was before he was murdered, but he's still a centerpiece in spirit. So it was, instead of ghouls and goblins and monsters and everything and vampires, we wanted to, some of us dress up as our ancestors. So it was just like, yeah, we're going to dress differently. We're going to dress, and if you didn't dress up in an ancestor of old costume, we are living ancestors. So if you came dressed as yourself, that was your Halloween costume. We were all dressed as our ancestors, whether it be us as living ancestors or our ones of the past. So that was the significance of Halloween. Is let's not go the commercial route and deal what everybody else wants to focus on right now. Let's not be distracted by that. We're going to take Halloween and tie it into something that's going to impact this community in a positive manner.
And I would also like to add to what Sean said. It was the last day of early voting in North Carolina. So the polls opened at 8 and closed at 3 o'clock. So we also wanted to make sure that people knew that and were there to participate in that. We got to make sure that people exercise their right to vote Their power is their vote. It's the best equalizer that each of us have to affect change in our communities. And that's why I was proud to stand with Sean. He was right beside me waving his flag as we were walking down the street. And it was a great opportunity to show solidarity, unity, and love within our community.
It was.
I was going to say, and then what happened?
So here's one of the questions that I was asked, and I like to redirect that question. Since we want to talk about PR, I'll show you why I'm PR. So we've been asked when did things get violent? And firstly, I would like to say it's not about when, it's about who. Because we were peaceful the whole time. Even when we were being thrown around and arrested, we were peaceful. So there was no win for us, like ever happened. The violence came from infiltrators who were a part of the sheriffs and the police departments who convoluted to work together. So if you are you just basically asking me what happened at this point so I can go into that?
Oh yeah, just tell the story.
Okay, so before we even started the march, we were approached by Christy Cole. Christy Cole is the police chief for Graham, North Carolina. She told us that the police were there to allow us to walk into the streets per our permit and that they were there to keep us safe. If you fast forward, after we walked and we paused for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in honor of George Floyd, we were told to get out of the street. Now, we were just told by Christy Cole, the police chief, that we had the street that we could occupy. And then when the sheriff's department stepped in, the sheriff's department began to pepper spray us and force us to get out of the streets. We have children throwing up. We have elderly out there. We also have disabled women. We had a disabled woman, and I'm sure she was not the only one, but she was in a wheelchair. She had a very, very violent reaction. She had a very, very violent seizure, to the point where you can see in video all over the country right now, to the point where she fell out of her chair and the whole chair just went toppling over. Like, and they didn't even call to help. But let's get back to the point here. Let's bring back Christy Cole, because we're going to hold her feet to the fire, because she's not going to get away with this one. She set us up. She told us one thing and then was not there. She was nowhere to be found when we were getting pepper sprayed and when we were being harmed and people were getting trampled in the streets because everybody was trying to run. She did not step up to defend us. She was not even there. She all but disappeared, and nobody from that police department helped us out. And not to only mention, not that. We can also mention, to add insult to injury, usually when we have these types of events, they like to call them counter protesters. I'm just going to call them racists. Okay. So usually when we have these events, the racists are allowed to go wherever they want to and do whatever they like. So, these law officials allow them to disturb our peaceful protests. This time around, they tried to make it seem like that they were sectioning all areas in the square for us and keeping the and protecting us from the racists or the Confederates, if you want to call them that. That's more appetizing. And they claimed it was to keep us safe. No, it was to keep them safe. They barricaded them around us and kept them out of the vicinity. They kept them out of the radius of which that they were planning to harm us. So it was a setup from the beginning. The sheriff's department knew about it. The police department knew about it. And the Confederates, I believe the Confederates knew about it. So we were up, but after we were sprayed the first time, we continued. We persevered because we were not going to be deterred. But as we had speakers, I spoke myself, and as we had other speakers come up, we started noticing that there's arrests going on around the plaza for no reason. And then it just escalated from there. But here's the reasoning that they gave, and I'm going to tell you where. And I heard this reasoning myself. I'm a fan of the horse's mouth, and I spoke with it. I looked it dead in the mouth. But they after we spoke, like they claimed that there was a gas generator, which there was. And they claimed that it was against the rules, or it breached the contract of the permit. They released a statement that said that he did not get his permits in time. We have correspondences in black and white Like Gregory Drumright, Pastor Drumright has correspondences in black and white to prove that to be a lie. Also, like it's not hearsay. I sat there and listened to them because I asked while I was, handcuffed and in jail. I asked, and they said it was all because of a gas generator. So I guess they thought we were about to Molotov the plaza. I don't know. Black people are involved. It's dangerous.
You're talking about just a little electric generator to run the PA system, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, but this one was running off of gas, and that was their reasoning for. So as all of that's going on, they start to militarize and form a line in front of the courthouse, and the sheriff's office. That he's out there giving them orders to go ahead and he said drop the bomb. That's what we heard. And so then they begin to advance on us. They begin to pull us down off of the stage. I was slammed down. My face hit the ground before my body did. Thankfully, I didn't break a lot of skin. I was bleeding on my legs in various areas. And I'm not quite sure if there was a gun pointed to my back or not. I know that I have a knot in my back, and I know I felt something sharp back there. I do not know if it was an elbow or a gun, so I'm not going to allege, but I do know that they pulled guns on some of us, and the snipers targeted me the whole day. But that is essentially what happened. And then once we got into jail, I would like to point out, before we get back to our main course, I would like to point out that we were not offered any sanitizer. We were not offered anything to protect us. There were 2 officers that did not have a mask on. We had to remind them to put a mask on. And because we were handcuffed, we could not pull our own masks up, because they tend to fall down when you're like being scrubbed across the ground all the way. So, so one of the guys, and I'll show y'all a demonstration. We asked him, can you pull our brother's mask up? He did this number right here. And we said,
below the nose.
Yeah. We said, why didn't you cover his nose? He said, I have to do that. And I'm like, sir, as a law official, you don't even have common knowledge or like common sense. It's not even something that you need to hear on the media. You don't have common sense enough to know, or common courtesy, or you just don't care. You didn't know to pull it over his nose. That is why the prison system in that area has this high rate of COVID cases right now. It's because they're not taking these precautions. There was no soap in the bathrooms. We had to ask for sanitizer, and they had to go find it. We had to ask them to put their masks on, and we had to ask them to pull our masks up.
Yeah, Scott, go ahead. From your perspective, what did you see?
Well, so I can only speak to my experience, and Sean has an incredible experience, which can probably be repeated by the other folks who were arrested along with him. But let me just say this. I was on the stage. If you're looking at the stage, I was to the left. The generator and the sound system was to the right. And we had, the speakers were going through, giving their speeches. But prior to us getting on the stage, we had all took a knee at the in front of or Sean, was that right there at the circle, correct? Where we took a knee with George Floyd's family.
Yes, and that is right there after, and that's also the interesting thing. And not because I'm going to let you finish that, but we did take a knee at the circle, and they, they're like, well, we allowed y'all to do that. Now it's time to move. They gave us 14 seconds.
Yeah. That's what I was going to lead to. Yeah. As soon as we took our knee, we started to stand up, and we were starting to get ready for the next part of the event. Okay. And I believe Reverend Drumright was telling everybody that we had to get the stage set up. And immediately within that short amount of time, these officers came over in an aggressive mode and said, clear the streets. Y'all immediately got to clear the streets. And what was troubling about that is that we just stood up. We were just getting reoriented to where we're going to go. We had about 300 people there, I think. And so with that said, they kept saying, okay, y'all need to get over here inside the bullpen. Well, they had put up these fences that circled the courthouse, and they were forcing us in through one small entrance. The rest of the folks went across the street. But if you're going to be a police officer, to me, and if you're going to be that community leader, they should have said, hey, folks, We need you to get off the street so we can allow traffic to get around here. We don't want to impede traffic, so y'all can continue to have your protest. But instead, they came at us at an aggressive nature, and I captured on video the second they started using chemical weapons on people to clear the street. And Sean was right there. He got sprayed. I saw it happen. Well, then they stopped. People got off the street, and they were still trying to just move us as quickly as possible inside the circle. Well, we needed to set up the stage, get everything ready. That was going to take a few minutes. So eventually we got that done, and we started talking, and several speakers were talking. I did a quick little video to tell people where we were on my Twitter feed, which you can go to, Huffman4NC on Twitter, and you can see these videos I posted. But we were talking. Or it looks like someone signing in. I heard a ringing noise.
That may be Elizabeth. Yeah, calling on my phone, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, sorry for the distraction. So anyway, went back over and got on the stage, and I was standing, like I said, if you were looking at the stage like this, I was on the left, the generator was on the right. Several speakers were going through speaking. I recall a friend of mine, a retired Master Chief Navy, Master Chief Corpsman Clifton Clark, was about to speak. And I looked behind me and I saw a wall of sheriff's deputies in camouflage gear with face masks. Okay. And then they all went over, and we had been into this event for about an hour and a half. And they all went over and started disconnecting the sound system and messing with the generator. So what's troubling is that generator was there the whole time. It was there the whole time. So if we couldn't have that generator,
it wasn't. It was there when it was time to march to the polls. Just about. That's when. Well, yeah, we had it down there. We took it with us to run the power. The No. I'm being sarcastic, sir. I'm saying it didn't exist until it was time to march to the polls.
Oh yeah, exactly. You're right. I see what you're saying. Well,
the magically appearing generator.
It was a small Honda generator. It was actually sitting inside of a cart where they could pull it that the speaker was on. And so, all of a sudden they went over and started focusing attention on that generator. And then, we were probably 10 minutes away from heading on over to the polls to exercise, people's right to vote. Well, then that's when everything went crazy. The police started, the sheriffs, I believe it was the sheriffs, because the police, that we were on county property at that point. Because of the courthouse is on county property, not city property. And so, we were at that point, the people immediately got sprayed. And I remember turning back and seeing a young man whose eyes were completely shut from being sprayed. And he was about to step off the stage, and the stage was about 3 feet off. He would have fallen off and injured himself. So I got to him in time and helped him down. Then I saw the woman in the disabled woman in her wheelchair. She was being carried away. There was an elderly woman. I believe she was the Reverend. Remember, Sean, she had her cane and her walker with her, and she was standing at the entrance. She got sprayed. And then, they're dispersing people everywhere at that point. They're telling everybody to get out. The county, one of the county deputies immediately declared the event an unsafe event. They claimed there was a gas can there. They claimed that they were doing all these things, which was really upsetting, because they should have just let everybody celebrate this opportunity to exercise their right to vote. Remember those who we've lost to police brutality, so we can honor those folks and keep their names alive, so we can seek justice for them. And it's really sad. They became the aggressors. At no time was anybody acting in a provocative way. They were the provocateurs. They attacked us. I got pepper sprayed. My eyes were totally red. Last night it felt like there was an elephant sitting on my chest all night. I feel much better today. But, one of the things I hope to do in Congress, if I'm elected, is to actually not talk about this lie that we're here to defund the police, but to actually talk about police reform. We've got to get our police officers have less time in training than it does to become a hairstylist in North Carolina. So we've got to work on that, make sure our police officers are trained on community services, not just to be an aggressive police officer. and they've got to have resources such as mental health services. Like, for example, there was a young man shot 14 times because he had a knife and he's bipolar and has a mental health issue. And the police were not trained to deal with that young man up in Philadelphia. They didn't have a social worker or mental health services. And they shot this man 14 times. He's dead. We cannot immediately, we can't immediately lean into extreme violence. We've got to get back to being there's good community leaders. Sean, go ahead.
Oh, I was just about to say, so, I mean, from my understanding, I do with the concept of defunding the police. However, it's not in the way that it sounds. It's not saying that we don't need some kind of organized form of protection. However, they way more money a year than is necessary. And those same funds that they're using to soup up their cars, I'm not talking about maintenance. I'm talking about soup them jokers up. Like, that sense of extra Krispy Kreme and Starbucks coffee and all of that stuff. They don't need that. Funnel some of that money, like just reassign it, reallocate it. Funnel some of that money to some of the communities that need it. Why is the sheriff's department looking, in the like the police departments? I mean, in this day and age, for the most part, they looking better than anybody's apartment in any of these hoods out here. So take some of those billions of dollars that they don't need, especially not to hurt us, defund some of that. But defunding really means reallocate. But it's just for optics wise, you get people behind you when you can say the term defund. Yes.
Well, I just think we got to work on reforming our police. We've got to make sure that they are stewards of the community in our district, because they've been militarized. We need to take out that military ideology out of our police department.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you to an extent. And I'm sorry, you had something to say. I'll just say that this is not new.
No,
the police have been militarized since the beginning, and here's why we want this to crumble so we can start over. And me and you may have a bit of a different ideology, but police came from slave catchers. That's where they devolved from.
I've heard that story.
Huh?
I have heard it's relatively new information to me, and I've been around a long time, but yeah. I've heard that. Jen was trying to get in here with a question. So Jen, go ahead.
Yeah.
So you guys are talking about the sheriff's deputies using chemical weapons. Is the sheriff up for re-election this election cycle?
I'm not aware. I heard that he wanted to retire, but we don't know what's true. I don't know. I can't say.
I don't have any information to that other than I think the sheriff's offices will be in 2 years. The election cycle is not during a presidential year, but the opposite 2 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I said, I mean, it came from slave catchers. Slave catchers were your first sheriffs. They were your first deputies, and then it became the term policeman. But I mean, it's really out here, the system. I'm not saying every single police officer, but they're part of a system that is here to target us and to keep the equilibrium of this country at bay by targeting and oppressing Black people, and doing things like incarceration and things of that nature to make sure that we don't find our footing in this country.
Sean, is People for Change going to work really hard to ensure that this sheriff and no other sheriff like him will get reelected in 2 years? Elected or reelected in 2 years?
I mean, the answer to that is we already have been. You hear the song that says it's been a long time coming. Thank you, Sam Cooke, but change gonna come. Well, no, it's been a long time coming, but change is here. And PFC has already been doing that. Sometimes it just takes a little time, but we're gathering, we're gathering our videos. And that's the great thing about social media, or not even social media, just technology. So yes, we're allowing him to continue to think he's going to always get away with this, but there will come a day. We're documenting everything, and we're not allowing this to slide. And yesterday was a great indication like with the national press that we receive, it is a great indication that, you know, this county is going to want to do something different due to the eyes that are on them. So People for Change is going to continue to do so, and we're going to continue to give hope to our people in these hoods, in Burlington, in Alamance, in these different areas who are scared to come out. We've had people who are middle-aged voting for the first time because they've been threatened, you know, so much throughout their life. If you show up at the polls, this is what we're going to do. They don't vote, you know?
Well, that gets to another point that Sean's making. We've got to remind people that voting does make a difference. So it's going to take folks like Sean to get into his communities and people like me to coordinate together to get people to exercise their right to vote. If we don't do that, then we keep allowing the same people to remain in power that do nothing but hold on to power. We've got to get those good public servants working for the communities in our local, our city, our school boards, our law enforcement, all the way up to the federal government in Washington, D.C. Yeah. And that's another reason why I'm running. We've got to be those community leaders. Sean, I think you ought to throw your name in the hat somewhere, man. You're articulate enough. You could be a great representative in Raleigh or a school board. So be the leaders that we need representing. You know, I'm a white guy, okay? I get that. And I want people to know, though, that I'm not here just for my own vanity. I'm here because our children they're like a canary in a coal mine right now. They're listening to what's going on right now as we talk about all these differences. We hear about Trump on the TV. We hear about people dying due to no leadership with this pandemic that's really devastating so many families. And the fact that so many businesses are gone now because Congress and the Senate will not act. I mean, Congress has done everything they can, but Senate under Mitch McConnell has become an obstructionist Senate. Over 300 bills on violence against women, equal pay, raise the wage act, different kind of law, all these laws that would actually help our nation are being ignored by people like Mitch McConnell, who have held on to power for far too long. So that's why, as a candidate for Congress, I actually support term limits. We don't want people staying in office who then become overzealous of their power and then forget how they got there. Again, that's why I want transparency and accountable in this office. That's why I'm proud to talk about that I'm going to use my IT skills to create what's called a mobile app. For a better lack of a term, we're going to call it the District 13 app. And it's going to be you download it from an iTunes store or a Google Android store. And if you're a registered voter in North Carolina District 13, when I go on the House floor or I go to a committee, you'll actually help me make my mind up on what kind of questions to ask at these hearings and what kind of vote to cast. So if there's a bill coming up that I have to vote on the House floor, I'm going to tell you why I'm voting for it or not voting for it. Then you get to hit a yes or no on that mobile device as a registered voter, and then get to tell me why you want me to vote for it if I'm voting against it, or why you want me to vote against it if I'm voting for it. So to me, that keeps that transparency and accountable to the person that holds this congressional seat, and it keeps the power in the voters. Not only do you come out every 2 years or every year to vote, you actually can maintain control on and hold that candidate, that representative, accountable to their actions for you while they're in office.
So, Scott, let me be the first to say what could possibly go wrong. And welcome to the podcast, Elizabeth Crudup.
So I've got a question for Scott, since you're running for a legislative position. Do you see a space within the legislative branch to be able to institute a new or implement a new law that says that in the event that somebody isn't properly permitted, as they were claiming was the reason that they had a problem with the generator, that instead of acting with punitive action, they instead sent out somebody whose job it is to issue an emergency permit to get that permit in place ASAP?
Well, that's at the local municipality level, those are ordinance that they pass the city. So, that's going to take community folks and leaders like Sean at the local level to get city officials, county officials to make changes to these ordinance. And let's just really just call these ordinance what they are. They're designed to stop people from exercising their First Amendment right. For example, if I'm not mistaken, Reverend Drumright had to put this permit and these sound permits in many days before he actually was holding the event. But he did the right thing. He met with the leaders. He organized this. He told them where they were marching, where they were going to stand, everything they were going to do. And he had already done this before, back in June or July. Is that not right? Is that correct, Sean?
Yes. And yeah. Was
and they did that one without any issue.
Yeah. So
what was different about this one?
Yeah. So the thing, like, and piggybacking off of that and kind of addressing the previous question along with that, that's what we're doing to so collective power is what we really stand for. Like, there's two components. You have revolutionary love and collective power. What we're doing is not only protesting in the streets and making our voices heard in that way, not only talking about voting, because, as Stokely Carmichael said, if you only tell your people about voting, then you're failing them. But we're going into these neighborhoods. We're passing out flags. We're passing out shirts. We're seeing what these people need, not just giving them things, but we're seeing what they need and desire in these communities. And once they see that there are people that care out here, they're going to want to raise their voices too. So we're attacking this thing from the media, from the making our voices heard, from the commissioners' meetings, from from going into neighborhoods, and from taking on cases of people that have not yet received justice for wrongdoings by law officials, especially. So that is what People for Change is out here to do, and we're out here to work with other organizations. And like I said, in addition to, we're here to work with the existing citizens in this county and see what they want and get them invested in fighting for themselves, because there is a culture in this county and many counties in the United States where Black people don't feel the need to fight for themselves because they feel like it's not going to do anything, or I'm scared, or I'm nervous, or there's a million Confederates out here and we're the minority. Not only in this country, we're the minority in this community. Like, and they threaten us all the time. They're going to kill us. We're going to stay in our hoods, and we're going to our neighborhoods, and we're just going to mind our own business. But once they see that there's other people out here standing, other organizations willing to advocate for them, that's going to build collective power. That's going to keep them wanting to vote. That's going to keep their interest up in protecting themselves and changing legislation, therefore changing the city, therefore changing the county, the state, the nation, and the world as a whole. So that's what we're doing.
Well, I think that's important. We've got to make sure we have connectivity between the neighborhoods, the communities. We've got to inspire leaders to step up and have their voices heard.
Yeah, sounds like a challenger for sheriff would be an excellent person to groom in the next 2 years, as well as some people to take over city council so that you guys can change those laws to make these emergency ordinances, emergency permits possible. I mean, that would then you're just dealing with some people who might be employees of the sheriff trying to start some crap. And, if you've got your person as sheriff, they can take care of their employees pretty well.
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, there's been several Department of Justice investigations into this sheriff. So we got to make sure that we hold these people who are in these offices, in these seats, accountable. Again, we can't reward bad behavior with another term in office.
So,
and the thing is, like, it's a double-edged sword when you get organizations or us to support you. And I know that Scott knows we're going to do this. Like, we show up at the door of your office and ask you what you doing and why stuff ain't happening. Especially if we supported you before, and that goes for a Black candidate as well as a white one. For anybody else, like, if we put our support behind you, then we're like, and we feel like things aren't getting done, it's going to be different. You're not going to be able to sit up in your office and prevaricate us any longer like anybody else. We will show up and we will stand there and we will wait for your answer and see what you're going to do about it. apply pressure to you until we've got the change that we need to see.
Yeah.
All right. I've got a question about Alamance County in that area. But first, I want to say hi to Elizabeth and Elizabeth Crudup, and thank you for bringing Sean and Scott on the show here at the very last minute. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Well, I'm so glad they were able to squeeze this into their extremely busy schedules. Thank y'all.
Yeah, me too.
This.
Thank you.
So my question is, Jen asked you where the 13th district and where this activity occurred geographically. I want to ask where it occurred politically, because it's in between the triangle, which is blue area, the triad, which is a blue area. This little spot of Alamance County is, how would you guys describe it?
I would describe it as a very red area, heavily conservative. But let's just make sure we also describe the fact that there are known white supremacists in the area. There are known Proud Boys in the area, and in fact, the Alamance the young Republicans of Alamance County actually sponsored and led a Trump train truck drive through Elon College, that they were shouting white power, holding up the OK symbol to represent white power and stuff through the college. They did this just back on September 20th, I believe. And they did it at the same time that I was holding a food drive in Davie County to help feed people who are struggling during this pandemic.
And that's where you see the woman wearing black genitalia on her mask. I mean, I don't know what I can say up here, so I'll just leave it at that word. But,
no, you can curse.
You can say anything
allowed,
you want.
I promise.
Oh, okay. No, we call her dick face.
That's the most apt description I have ever heard. Use on the nose.
Yeah, we call her dick face. Her name is like Eileen or something. And I'm big on putting names out there, because if you bold, then you want the spotlight, and we're gonna clap it up for you while I give it. But no, when I first met her, she told us she wasn't racist, and that we were the racists. But then she goes and does a ritual, because when they used to lynch black men, a lot of times they would castrate them beforehand, due to their sick and twisted power struggles due to their egos, and they would wear this around their necks. They would play around with the genitalia, and that is what she was representing. So yeah, he's got to call it a red area. I'm gonna call it what it is. It is a highly racist area.
No, I agree. You've seen those examples there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very common. It's overwhelming. I remember the first time I came here, I stepped out of my vehicle and felt it in about 30 seconds. I looked around and I was like, okay, where the hell am I at? This is not the place that I want to be. But it turned out to be the place that I do want to be. But you don't.
Well, let me just add this, Sean. I called out this behavior. I called it what it was. I did a public statement about it, and I challenged my Republican opponent, Ted Budd, to do the same thing. We have yet to hear him call out these white supremacists for what they did, these neo-Nazis, these Proud Boys, these young Republicans for what they did to our communities. And if he doesn't do it, then Sean, he's giving them cover. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, he is. And the crazy thing is, it's not just the civilians that you see in the street. Some of the law officials are actually known members of these hate groups as well. Terry Johnson is a known member of a hate group, and he's the whole freaking sheriff. You know what I mean? So it's like they work together. They talk together. They're friends behind the scenes, and they're concocting plans on how to find a way to either mass incarcerate
people
and intimidate us.
Yes.
And if you look, I recommend that everybody look and go find any deep detail that you can in the Terry Johnson and some of these other law officials, Officer Land, Officer King, and look at the groups that they're associated with, and you shocked at how open they are with their hate.
So you guys were on your way to vote, and this was indeed intimidation. Do we have any legal recourse for voter intimidation here? Since some of these people were
I don't
in
have an answer
uniform.
there. I don't have an answer that. I do know that Josh Stein, the North Carolina Attorney General, is doing some investigative work. I do know that reports were filed with the FBI. So something may come of it. The sad part about it is that early voting was yesterday, and people were denied the right to go vote. I went after that event happened, and I went and stood in the lines. I did not see anybody that was at that rally that made it to vote. So they were denied their right to vote on the last day of early voting. So that means they have to go on Tuesday. And most people work. Most people I talk to are working 2, maybe 3 jobs. And so, the opportunity for them to vote on a Saturday when they may not be working was denied. And in fact, after polls closed at 3:00, I was in the parking lot and people were still driving up and did not know polls had already closed. So I counted at least 15 people that came up after the fact that I had to tell them the polls were already closed. So people have got to get out there on Tuesday. That's why we've got to make voting a national holiday. That's why we've got to expand the opportunity to vote. But let's not forget that mail-in ballots, because of this pandemic, were the most popular thing. North Carolina had the most mail-in ballots ever, but because people chose to do mail-in ballots, we saw what Trump and Louis DeJoy out of Greensboro, did to our postal system. First-class mail, since DeJoy's gotten in there as of July this year, has a 50-50 chance of being delivered. That's why I told people as of last Tuesday, don't take a chance. Walk your vote into the Board of Elections. Get it counted. If you can't confirm that your mail-in ballot was received in time, or it was found to be spoiled, or you had to have a second witness signature on it or anything, just go ahead and go vote in person. Get it done. Because if we don't vote, they're going to take it away from us. And as a veteran who served my country to defend those basic fundamental constitutional rights, I'm appalled.
And to add to that, like it was also reported that there was no intimidation, and that there was still made it to the polls and things like that. And one of the people who wanted to, or one of the entities rather, that wanted to spread that propaganda was Alamance News. And like I said, I'm going to call it out. I'm the daring PR one. I'm not trying to be nice here. Alamance News continues to slander and spread libel about activists and allies who are also activists, whether you're black, white, or whoever. They put me on the front page of the paper often, but let's decenter it from me and censor it on the fact that they put out a story about the event yesterday and said that nobody was sprayed in the face, and people in this community are actually thanking them for telling the truth. And we're sitting here with pictures and videos of people being sprayed in their faces.
I'm just wondering if we need to get that pedantic. Like, there was pepper spray unleashed at all. The end. Oh, it might have hit your chin and not your cheek. Whatever. We don't need to get into the weeds like that. There shouldn't have been pepper spray at a person at all.
At all.
Well, chemical weapons are chemical weapons. I never thought in our country that we would be using chemical weapons on fellow Americans.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it shouldn't have been at all. That's the first thing. Like you said, I do agree with that. I'm just saying, like, the fact that they try to sugarcoat and change the narrative is very, very, very much like right. It's racist propaganda, and
not just racist propaganda, but it sounds like somebody is trying to cover up some embezzlement here, because pepper spray costs taxpayer money, and taxpayers have the right to know when their money is being used. Now, it's being used on chemical weapons, and those chemical weapons are unleashed, so now they're going to have to be restocked, and that also costs taxpayer money. I can't believe conservatives are rolling over and taking this unless they're the ones being hoodwinked here.
Well, let's just call it what it is. It's okay if you're Republican to do this kind of stuff. All right. Let a Democrat or anybody in power do this kind of stuff, and they'll be screaming like a choir does in church. But anyway, hey guys, I'm gonna have to drop off here. I've got to get back on the road. I pulled over to have this great opportunity to talk to you folks. Hey, brother Sean, it's good to see you again. We're we're going to be there again. I should be in Alamance on Tuesday to
All
get the
right.
vote out. We've got to win this, so we have good leadership in Washington. So I can be that public servant. Gary, thank you for the opportunity to join your show and be a part of this. When did you say it was going to air?
It's live right now to the entire.
Oh, we're live right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's available on triangletalkshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, podcasts.
Any podcatcher you've got.
Everywhere in the world. Just so
Stay
Triangle
safe,
Talk Show is the thing to.
Stay sane.
Yep.
Stay citizen.
I'll text you some links.
All right. Best wishes to everybody. Bye-bye.
Good luck, Scott. Thank you very much. Okay.
About 5 minutes. I just wanted to let you know, but I'm here for now.
Okay. Elizabeth, are you still on the line here someplace?
I'm still on the line.
Did you want to talk to us?
I really can't add more than what has been said already. Excuse me, that's my little grand. But really cannot add more to what has been said already. I'm so proud of Sean and what the people in Alamance County. Just want to tell them that we stand in solidarity with them, and whatever they need to happen, we will make happen. I'm so glad that they were able to make it and get their story out to make sure that we get the full narrative, not what was being fed to us by the news conference that was held by the police earlier. That I'm so glad they got to get the full account out and let the public judge for themselves what went down in Graham, North Carolina.
All right.
Thank you.
And Sean, go ahead.
No, I was just thanking her. That's all.
Okay. I appreciate your coming on and letting us know what happened over there. I'm going to let you go and invite you to come back anytime you want. And we're on here 4:00 Saturdays or Sundays rather. Come on back anytime you got something you want to talk to us about.
All right.
Hopefully something a little more positive, but if we got to keep having the sad news until we learn, we're there for it.
This is the last thing I'll say. I don't think that this is sad news at all. I mean, now you can contrast that with photos of me crying or the fact that there was a lot of hurt or the fact that I barely slept last night. And when I did, I was waking up, reliving things. But this was necessary. I don't like how it had to happen, but it was necessary because now we've captured a certain level of attention that this community needs, and a certain level of attention that this little legislation out here and this law enforcement needs. So, I am happy to be out there. My comrades are happy to be out there. We were honored. We were having a great time in the jail. We were praying. We were singing. We were laughing. We was joking. We were educating, trying to educate some of these people that work in this racist system. And it was a good time. And it was because we strive to live for the movement by not being afraid to die for the movement. And if you're not willing to die for the movement, you're going to panic and freeze up. You won't be effective and you may die anyway. So, I mean, we're not scared. We don't live in fear. I thought that we were going to get killed yesterday when they pulled the guns out on us. I really thought that they were going to shoot us, and mass murder us. And thankfully it didn't happen, but we do not fear that. So, it's an honor. And I just say that to say that it was a good thing. Sometimes I feel a bit of hurt. I mean, you're not going to have a superhero syndrome here. Sometimes you feel a bit of hurt, but overall I feel empowered. And I'm glad that the world is looking at us.
This is what has to happen if there's going to be change.
Exactly.
Yeah. When people aren't out there putting themselves on the line, nothing changes.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Elizabeth, for inviting me on and being the liaison for this. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Gary. I'm honored. I would love to speak with you guys anytime. Thank y'all so much. And PFC thanks you guys as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you. Have a great one, guys.
Wow. Okay, Elizabeth. Once again, you brought us a relevant, up to the minute, at 30 minutes before the show started.
But this is corruption writ large.
We were going to talk about daylight saving time.
This is corruption writ large. As I'm listening to the story, of course it's going to be racist. And of course it's going to be trying to pull one over on liberals. But also, now that I'm hearing that the Alamance newspaper is reporting that chemical weapons weren't fired, they're trying to pull one over on conservatives too. The fiscal conservatives, the ones who count every penny and take care that government spending is in line, they're trying to pull one over on them. That's corruption writ all the way large. That's a lot of hate.
I would even go as far as calling it terrorism. That is terrorism. We can no longer call what those people in uniform do, we cannot call it law enforcement anymore, because that is not what they're doing. That is terrorism. They're holding citizens of the United States in terror, or people coming out to come out in peace. They're doing acts of terrorism on people. And there are laws that protect us against terror, and they need to be enacted and implemented on those that show up under the guise of wearing a police uniform and saying they're enforcing law. There's not one law they're enforcing there. Those were acts of terror.
No, it seemed to be a civil code thing that they were hiding behind. I guarantee you that if I had gone out there with my generator that I hadn't had a last-minute permit for, with the I's dotted and the T's crossed or whatever it needs to be, I'd have had a permit issued to me within a half an hour.
I'm not sure if they mentioned it earlier. That generator had been on and been in use for an hour and a half.
Oh, I'm quite sure. Quite sure. It's a lovely little excuse of a generator, isn't it, though?
Yes, a little tiny, but they're doing like a huge thing. It was something that was capable of being handheld. It was nothing that had to, be on the ground. It was on the ground because the people were lying down.
Were you out there yourself, Elizabeth?
They kept it,
Say, as somebody who loves to get into the weeds of these sort of municipal codes, I do understand why municipalities do have permits required for things like generators, because as responsible as these guys were being with theirs, some idiot out there wasn't once upon a time. And so they're just trying to make sure that somebody's responsible. But at the same time, I wrote a note to myself, and I'll read it. I said, when a rule relies on people's discretion to not enforce it in order for that rule to be just, then the rule itself is unjust, and the rule needs to be repealed and replaced only if necessary.
Absolutely. And we cannot codify the response. If you don't like a generator, confiscate the generator. Do not spray children in the face with chemical weapons. That is not an adequate response or an appropriate response.
It isn't. I also wrote down, these guys don't have de-escalation training, and they wouldn't know wait time if it stuck its tongue out and licked them on the face. Any school teacher knows how long wait time is. At minimum, you offer 30 seconds, because that's the average processing time that a human hears word input and it takes to process in your brain before you can respond. 14 seconds is not adequate processing time. It's not adequate wait time.
All right, it is not, and I do not even think that that was even, it's like they said, when they lie down, this is what you're going to do. It was just something that happened for the people in uniform. I won't call them law enforcement. The people in uniform, they said this is something they had planned to do. They thought it would humiliate and break the spirits of the crowd that showed up to march to the polls, but what they have ended up doing is igniting and inspiring an even stronger movement for change within North Carolina and hopefully within the United States.
I'd say it's definitely, and I don't live in that district, but damn, I want that sheriff out. Because what I got out of this was, I wasn't terrorized because I'm not in that district, so it wasn't aimed at me. But what I did get out of this was that sheriff is running a shitty department. There is no training in there that is any way modern. This is the 21st century, and that training is 19th century that those deputies were showing. And maybe they were doing it to terrorize, and they were forgetting their more recent training, but I don't have any proof of that. All I know is this is what they showed up doing. And I cannot believe that even the law and order conservatives in Alamance County are okay with that in a sheriff.
And that's what scares, because right now it was that particular group that was targeted. Next time it will be someone's wife at home. It will be someone's son at the store. We were just fortunate that they got a crowd. We do not know the horrors and the terrors that they have committed and what kind of cases they have given evidence for in the courtrooms. I think this would be grounds to challenge everything they present.
I would like to I would like to give our listening audience a sort of a playthrough, because I do believe that our audience tends to lean liberal. And I know that the audience tends to dislike corrupt authority, but I don't think the audience knows how things are supposed to go and why things might not go correctly in the case of noncompliance. So, Gary, may I assign you a role?
Sure.
Your job is you are going to play the police officer because you are our nearest white male, and you're going to try and get Elizabeth and I to put our hands on our head, and I will refuse to comply.
Okay. Which version of a police officer am I going to play? Am I going to get your fucking hands on your head now?
Well, you can play whichever version feels most authentic to you, because I have a feeling that you're going to do some of the right things that most police should do, but maybe some don't. Maybe a lot don't.
If it was really me, it would be put your hands on your head. Put your hands on your head right now, please. Put your hands on your head right now.
So she's doing
please.
it, but I'm not, and I'm going, mm-mm.
Ma'am, put your hands on your head. This is for your own safety and mine.
So that's one of the things you should do. Right there. You should explain why you are issuing the command. Treat me as a competent individual capable of being a partner in my own safety. Right? There, you did that, but I'm still not complying. I still refuse.
I'm not sure. Well, then it starts to get physical, I guess.
But there's something else you missed.
Well, of course, because I'm not trained.
Okay, well, how about, ma'am, why aren't you putting your hands on your head? Try that.
Okay, ma'am, why aren't you putting your hands on your head?
I dislocated my shoulder yesterday and I cannot move my arm.
Oh, that's just an excuse.
I can't put my hands on my head, sir.
All right, put your hands behind your back.
See? There. That's the other thing. The other thing is asking the question. Because a lot of times, most people who don't comply because there's a reason. They have a physical reason. They need a modification from the authority member. These are the two responses in the escalation pyramid before you get yelling and before you get physical. And thank you, Elizabeth, for playing along as compliant so that you showed the timeline with which somebody would hear those words and respond. And by the way, you did it in 30 seconds because that's how long auditory processing lasts. Those people who are listening to the audio podcast, come on in, grab the video one and watch and start counting seconds, because I asked Elizabeth to comply in order to illustrate the wait time that is necessary for somebody who will immediately comply. The two parts of the escalation triangle are, number one, first you go in with education. I need you to put your hands on your head right now, that we need to see everybody's hands because somebody's hands have a bomb in it and we need to see whose hands those are. We don't want to assume incorrectly about yours or whatever reason you're giving the order. And then the second one is, hey, what's standing in the way of you being able to comply? And then somebody will say, like, I broke my leg, I have pins in my knee, I cannot sit very easily, and I certainly can't sit on command. And then they'll say, oh, here, as a modification, because we know what we're doing this for safety for, can we just have you stand sideways or whatever? Then you issue a modification. But most people want to be partners in their own safety. And Sarah, who's not here with us right now, this is one of the things that she does as her trainings, is she goes around and actually trains not police departments, but she trains town councils, city councils, the local legislative body for a municipality, so that they can oversee their police better by showing them this is what you should expect your police or your law enforcement body to do in this order.
And that information is vital because having been part of many civil actions, having been part of arrest, I think I noticed, like in Harnett County, you comply, but it's like they have been trained. The training looks more like they've been trained to assault you and use excessive force. Even when you're telling them, I have complied, you have to remind them, you have me in handcuffs. Do you see you have me in handcuffs? We're meant to go walk now. I in handcuffs, especially in Harnett, I had my shoulder almost dislocated. I've had my wrist twisted so many times, my thumb almost taken off of joint in handcuffs. So it's sometimes it's like they have been told, people of color, you're meant to hurt them. You're supposed to hurt them. Instead of arrest them, you're supposed to cause some physical injury to them. And that's how most of the law enforcement, sheriff departments are responding. Doesn't matter how much the people of color are responding and are complying. Doesn't matter. It's like the protocol is see somebody of color and hurt them, and hurt them. And
yeah, police a lot of times just initially assume defiance, direct defiance. And I have to say, I saw it in the school district too. When I taught in the school system, if I had a student who did not comply with the directive, I was encouraged by whichever person, usually an assistant principal in the school, was in charge of discipline for the whole school. I was encouraged to write that student up as defiant. People in authority are used to, when somebody doesn't immediately comply, assuming immediately malice and defiance, rather than there's a processing issue and somebody takes a little longer to process words, or perhaps physically they are incapable of complying and they haven't quite worked out how, in that moment of terror, because you're scared when somebody's giving you that order, how to articulate and describe what's going on, because now you're in a position where you're not doing what you're supposed to, and you're trying to figure out a way to say, like, please don't hurt me, I have pins in my elbow, I can't move my arm in that way, or whatever. And not everybody can come up with those words in that moment. Sometimes you have to be invited.
And that's the thing. The law enforcement are taught to brutalize other than inform and find out what's going on. They're taught brutalize first, brutalize this person to the point of death, to the point of injury, to the point of oblivion somewhere, and then come back and say, what's the problem? I saw this lady she had been arrested. This was her first time being arrested. I think it was just like a dispute between her and her brother or something. She's 22 years old. And this is the first time she's in a jail. She's terrified, and they tell her to take off her clothes, to put on the jail jumpsuits. She's like, no, I don't want to take my clothes off in front of everybody. And this is Harnett County now, country jail. They beat her head in. Instead of just stepping out of the changing room has observation where the women, deputies would usually observe people putting on. Instead of trying to make her change out there in front of everybody, and this is now the male deputies, beat her head in, literally. Her face is all swollen because all she was terrified. She said, if they just given me a moment, I'm scared, I'm upset already by being there, and then you tell me to take my clothes off in front of everybody, and their response was not, let her go into the area that has been designated for changing clothes and change there. Their response was beat her head in. This has got to change. This has got to change. There's got to be some kind of recourse, some kind of protection. These guys show up in uniform calling themselves law enforcement, but what they have shown themselves is just a continuation of the acts of terror that we suffered for a long, long time during slavery. Just because the laws change doesn't mean the attitudes change. And we do not know what has been discussed in their homes, around the dining room tables for generations. The institution of slavery had to exist with a certain attitude, certain parameters. And the terror and the ruthlessness that it took did not end in many places. And now it's showing its face again. As Sean said earlier, a police patrol was really the party rollers. Really, that's what they used to do to humanity. And these law enforcement, I have no idea what they're taught in those training sessions. I have no idea. At some point, that brutalization attitude has got to end at some point. Many of us are educated. Many of us are able to say and articulate. In fact, we're reasonable human beings. But if you're faced with brutality, that is what you're faced with. You're faced with a brute. Every time you see a uniform, you expect a brute. You do not expect protection. You do not expect help in any way. You expect to be brutalized or someone around you to be brutalized. Someone needs to change that training manual, because I do not know when the last time they updated it. And they need to stop brutalizing humanity and then using the term law enforcement, because that's not who they are.
There's a huge disconnect for me between the idea of training and what is taking place from some police, and it looks like the police and the sheriffs in Alamance County and how they're actually behaving on the street. I mean, I can't believe that they're being trained to do this. I would love to be on the fly on the wall on the sensitivity training that they are supposedly receiving, and all the winking and nudging and laughing that goes on when they're receiving this so-called training.
I would love to be the fly on the wall during the financial audit for how much of the taxpayer funds were spent on training that clearly didn't take.
Ooh, say that again. You can say that again.
Yeah, I mean, that happens in the city council, but I want to be in the room where it's happening. I want to be where where they feel comfortable enough to laugh and wink at each other and say, yeah, sure. Yeah. We know what we're going to do when we go out on the street, regardless of what that film strip is telling us.
See, that's not training. That's exposure. Training has a graduation process, and you don't graduate from training if you're not on board. I mean, I say this as somebody, I've received bloodborne pathogen training. And what I mean by that is I watched a movie about it. I watched a movie about it year after year after year after year. But when somebody is bleeding near me, do I first stop and go get my gloves? Not necessarily, because I'm not trained. I was just exposed. I was exposed to what the right thing was to do. But training requires muscle memory. It's a whole process.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't think you can train racism out of somebody.
I don't think you can either, but I think you can make good hiring choices. And this is clearly not.
I truly believe that law enforcement need to have a 4-year degree. They need to have a 4-year degree and a clearer understanding of the laws they're trying to enforce. If it takes that law enforcement officer just his pen to write down some kind of charge, but it has to take an attorney with 2 degrees, licensed by the Bar of North Carolina, et cetera, to get what that gentleman or lady just wrote on a piece of paper, to get that off of the record or to drop those charges, it takes, a whole bunch of education. Shouldn't it take just as much education to be able to write it? Shouldn't it take just as much education to be able to write it? Because there's a lot of malicious and overcharging and all that. And I really believe it's just sometimes a lack of education and a lack of comprehension of the laws that they're trying to enact. They need to go through just as much legal training as the attorneys, if not more, before they're put in uniform. Otherwise, it's like handing, I'm just going to say it. It's really like handing a shotgun to a chimpanzee. He knows what side to hold, but he's just going to keep shooting. He might shoot himself 1 or 2 times. He might clear the whole village down. You do not know. You need something more solid in terms of education base before you become a quote unquote law enforcement officer. You cannot tell me the training the law enforcement officer got equals the training the attorney got equals the training the judge gets. But it takes the attorney and the judge to sort out what that law enforcement officer did, and that just doesn't make any sense. There has to be better education and better training.
So, Elizabeth, you were actually born in Africa, not the U.S.
That's right. Right.
And as close as I can narrow it down, it was in Wakanda.
Oh, but Wakanda forever.
Just about to tell Gary, Africa's not a country.
Yeah. Like it's Wakanda forever, but what I'm seeing really is such a clear targeting of the people of color. Such a clear targeting. I think I took a very interesting picture of. I live in Harnett County, so of the Harnett County deputies, the new hires. Was nothing but white males, mid-20s to early 30s. People who, after high school, really did not see another black person until they came to start kicking them around. We do not know where they hired these guys from. We do not know what type of interactions they'd had prior with people who are not of their race, who are not blonde-haired and blue-eyed, but now they totally disregard humanity. They disregard humanity that doesn't look like them, doesn't act like them, doesn't talk like them. They disregard you. You're not a human to them.
How old were you when you emigrated to the U.S.?
I was 16, but I was an international traveler. My life is unique to many. I think I'd filled at least 4 different passports in traveling. So I've seen the world through many different perspectives. And I first had to understand what was going on in the United States. I had just never seen, and I've been in places where people of color are extremely rare, at least at that time. To understand what the paradigm in the United States, then the paradigm in the South, which is just totally unique in terms of the viciousness that the people of color are forced to live in. And they've lived in it for so long, some of them don't even realize how vicious it actually is. It's horrible. And when you question it, you're called an agitator. You're told, what's wrong with you? I think many of the elected officials, when I started getting into activism, were confused. It's like, why aren't you trying to make them happy? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to agree with everything. They say that's what makes you a good citizen. I said, in which universe will I agree that renters should go to jail every time their landlord doesn't fix the window screen? Why? Because they would go into neighborhoods of low income, and some of them were held by slumlords. And if there was any building code violation, including just the screen for the window being on the ground, the renter would be charged and possibly jailed.
I'm going to reiterate, and I quote, when a rule relies on discretion to not enforce it in order to be just, that rule is unjust and needs to be repealed.
Yeah, thank God that one was repealed, but it is the apathy that has existed, or the apathy that has been the survival of the African American community in the South. It's better to be apathetic than it is to be a challenger. Challengers get lynched, they get burnt, they get killed, they get arrested, they get strangled on the street, by people calling themselves law enforcement. It's better to be apathetic. But it's so awesome to see the younger generation. Somewhere along the line, that apathy started peeling off slowly but surely. To see the people in their mid-20s, let me say 28 and younger, to see them saying, this is not the world we want to continue. We know better, and therefore we will do better. And it doesn't matter whether they're people, it doesn't matter what race they are. That age group has really started trying to redefine what the normal is. It is not normal to be tased randomly. It's not normal to have tear gas sprayed in children's faces. It's not normal to have your head crushed on the hot street road until all life has left you. It is not normal. That is not acceptable. And marching to the polls, I keep telling people, your greatest act of revolution is casting your vote. That is your greatest act of revolution.
If it wasn't so powerful, they wouldn't try so hard to stop you from doing it.
Exactly. They're willing to put you in jail than to let you put that pen to that paper and mark it. That is how powerful a vote, and I hope people make sure they get out and vote.
Yeah. One more day coming on Tuesday. I was going to ask, since you came when you were 16, you learned a lot about the United States before you moved here. You learned a lot about the world. When you got here, was it eye-opening? Was it different?
There's some secrets the United States hold real secret. They don't show the world. I came in a pre-internet world where internet was just, starting to come out. So there's a lot of stuff that we in the international world did not know what's going on over here. We were told that we were the backward ones, we were the primitive ones, we were the ones that did not, don't know anything. And we come out and we find that the world had more unity than the one place that was supposed to have all this unity and was a melting pot and welcoming and accepting. I always tell the African American men that you will never fully be a man until your feet have touched the soil of Africa, because what they have done to the African American man in this country is so horrible. The emasculation, even those that stand up proud and continue, there's a hollowness there. There's a hollowness, there is a void that is not fillable until they have full knowledge of self, which was stolen from them. My firstborn son keeps telling me he doesn't know what he would be if he did not know his history, if he did not know his parents, his grandparents, his great-grandparents, his great-great-grandparents. Most people here do not know anyone beyond their grandma. Says he doesn't know what he would do if he did not know that legacy. And that is missing in the majority of African American history. You're a different person when you know your history. And that, your people fought this hard. Most of them, they're told that the history started with slavery. History did not start with slavery. It didn't. That's not where you're from. You're not from slavery. But your people went through slavery, but that's not the entirety of your roots. That's the bottom of the trunk, but there's still roots in the ground there that you've got to know about until African American men have at least touched the soil in Africa at least one time, to remember what it was, to remember what their power was. That there's nothing like it, and I hope that they will regenerate that power and come back and feel that, hey, it's okay. You're not being bad if you say, you know what, I'm going to be respected. I respect myself. I'm taking care of myself. I have a right to walk this earth and not feel like I have a big X on my back.
Yeah, everybody has it right.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, thank you for bringing Sean and Scott to the show today. And I feel like we're doing a show out of the late 1960s and not the early part of the 21st century. This is still going on. Alamance County's not that far away. Jen, you're even closer than I am. You're like 15-minute drive.
Yeah, I was going to say when they were talking about the Proud Boys, I'm like, I know them by face.
Yeah, you're a 15-minute and a 100-year drive.
It's, Alamance County is not that bad. There's a lot of good in Alamance County. Then there are the Proud Boys who like to show themselves up to everywhere, and I know them by face. I know their faces. I don't know their names, but I know their faces. And my mom has even nicknamed one of them the Goat. So, they're so common. We're giving them nicknames. That's where they find refuge. And, I've dealt with enough children, and Elizabeth, you've got kids and grandkids, so you've dealt with enough children. What I'm seeing is what we call in the child development sphere an extinction spike. It means this is the last try of bad behavior before it goes away. And God, I hope we get to the goes away part soon. But this does look very, because when it's uncomfortable, when it's not allowed to behave poorly anymore, that's when they really behave extra poorly. They show one last real show of, well, I'm going to put you through this, but then it stops. And it happens with children when you're trying to get them out of a behavior that maybe you've accidentally gotten them into. Like if they cry, they get a cookie. So then they start crying a lot because they keep wanting cookies. And then at some point you're like, no, that's not the association we're going for here. I'm not going to reward your crying with cookies. Well, then they will bawl and scream so loud you think that the neighbors are going to call the cops for beating the kids. But then after that, they stop crying for a cookie. They just ask nicely. It's an extinction spike. And I hope to God that this is an extinction spike, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Yep, a swan song, so to speak. They say the swan only sings when it's about to die. And we hope this is the death of racism, the death of hate, the death of all the horrible things that need to have died a long time ago in America. But we hope this is their swan song and sayonara.
Yeah.
I've been following, like, the number of Proud Boys has not increased at any point. It is the same number and the same faces. So they're clearly having recruiting problems. And I've been following that the KKK kindly extended an offer to my Jewish self to join because they're having recruiting problems. So I really feel like this really is the swan song. They're like, hey, come join us. You look white. And I'm like, I'm Jewish. You know, I'm kind of not allowed. They're like, you know what? We've changed those rules. We're now accepting Jews. And I'm like, oh, God, you guys are dying.
No, oh my gosh. And I keep going just from the history of America. Everybody who has lived here at least, let me say 2 to 3 generations, 5 generations, we all mixed with somebody somewhere. You know, everyone is mixed with a little something somewhere. I hope those guys take an Ancestry.com, DNA thing, and just realize how not what they are, what they think they are, you know, and realize that.
Okay, momentary freeze. There she's back.
We're all human, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm 100% pure American, Aryan American. In fact, my ancestors go back hundreds of generations right here in America. We've never been anywhere else.
I heard a study quoted, and I haven't tracked down the study, but the study was about how men naturally, and it started with white men, naturally organize themselves into a pecking order. And how the guys at the bottom of the pecking order, they didn't have any skills, they couldn't contribute much, you know, to a society, whatever, as other guys determined. First, they added white women into that. And then the guys at the top of the pecking order didn't lose and they didn't mind. The women sort of filled in the middle gaps. And then the guys who were unable to contribute, who were at the bottom of this pecking order, they got shoved down further by these women. Then they added everybody who wasn't white to the pecking order. And those guys at the bottom got shoved down even further. So it appears that these guys are trying to close that gap in the middle by hating all the people standing in between them and the skilled white guys at the top or whatever. But really, they should be asking themselves, what skills am I missing? Maybe I can learn them, so maybe I'm not at the bottom anymore.
And I think the thing is, before you could say that the white guys with the skills, you know, what the it thing in society, but the world has gotten more. The formal education is now international, worldwide. Everywhere there is a formal education, so everybody has skills. Everybody has it, and sometimes it's even more than what quote unquote white guy would have. So that that type of education as being a barometer of superiority is done with.
It is.
The whole world has the same education, if not better education. The whole world has access to technology. The whole world is connecting with each other. There's no big secret. You have to come back and tell people and do what? The whole world is connected. You know, the equality, you know, someone out there in the desert has a little, you know, solar powered laptop connected to the same World Wide Web as somebody sitting out there in Beverly Hills, you know, so. And
they're watching the Triangle Talk Show on it right now.
They're watching that. You know, so that's why I'm saying, I'm like, that is no longer a barometer of superiority. If all you have to hold on to is the color of your skin is making you superior, that is it. You know, I'm so sorry for you. I'm like, that is it, really?
I mean, you could. There's a lot of things you could have that would give you some status if you wanted it. Become the best card player in your county. Like, be the very best at Go Fish. Like, any skill at all, any skill.
Yep. Yep, that's what I kept going. I'm like, I'm very sure you've got more to offer the world.
You want lackeys, man. Get real good at a Rubik's Cube. Like that, you will have groupies. People will worship you. Like any skill.
Did you find something else that's worth chanting to the world other than the color of your skin?
Because I've got a lot of fountain pen ink, and I can change somebody's skin color in a minute. I mean, maybe not permanently, but I can turn you green.
So let me ask a counterpoint question then, because it's not just happening here. As I understand it, nationalism is happening all over the world.
Yeah.
Here in America, it's American exceptionalism, but lots of other countries are feeling very nationalistic these days.
It's like we're exceptional at so many things that are all bad. I'm not really sure that's the hill we want to die on.
Yeah. But so it seems like internationalism is what we need, but it's not what we're getting right now.
I think if they're trying to inherit what they're seeing over here, someone says, "Oh, that must be the true road to power." Is let's do what they're doing, and maybe we'll be just as powerful as them. But they don't realize that's not what made America awesome. What made America awesome was that anyone who came here, whether they were, whatever they were in their country that defined them as that's it and that's all you'll ever be, they'd come to America and rise to their greatest life. Many of them, they rose to their greatest life, and their grandchildren and children after that rose to their greatest life. And that's what America offered you. There's some places, yeah.
I would say that America's great, and it's a double-edged sword, as so many things are. America's great contribution on a global stage is, as a country, we're defiant.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell me I can't. And
That's
so
right.
we've broken a lot of barriers on things that simply, nobody thought could be done, but Americans went, "Don't tell me I can't." And then we went ahead and did it. On the other hand, when you're asked to wear a mask and you're told not to not wear a mask, you get the "don't tell me I can't" as well. So it
is that. And I think the spirit of adventure, this is what I keep saying, the spirit of adventure that made America so fantastic and phenomenal is being numbed. You're told, don't be adventurous, don't wander out there, just stay, this is how you're supposed to be, and don't change this, don't rock the boat. And America were the boat rockers. If you wanted the boat to be rocked, whatever innovation there was, innovation in another country, the Americans would say, "Come to America. You can go as far as you can with whatever it was."
We collect them. This is the safe space for innovators. Absolutely.
So that spirit of innovation, that spirit of something more, that's what it was. America would offer you something more. And now it's being stifled by people who just believe they're here to fatten their bank account. Wealth is okay, but it's not all there is to life.
I never expected this level of flag waving coming from you, commie pinko, left-leaning socialists.
You see, that's
only one, two. No, I am pink. Only two of those words apply to me. I'm not really much of a socialist. I prefer communism to socialism. I've thought about them deeply.
I gave you commie pinko.
But then you called me a socialist as well, and you can't be both a communist and a socialist.
No, it's all the same thing.
But
I'm definitely more democratic, socialist leaning. If it means helping people and helping society instead of oppressing them, I think if you want to label me, you can label me. All I say is that I do believe that every human deserves to be treated as a human.
And I love living communally in a communal society where everybody contributes their best skills to everybody else's needs.
Yeah, I don't think that works, but that's a discussion for another show.
It doesn't work on a broad scale, but it can work on a small scale. And I don't need it to work on a broad scale. I'm okay with small scale communal living. Like kibbutzes in Israel or communes here in the US. In fact, that's my ultimate goal, is to live in a commune here.
Yep. So all I can say is my commune calls. Our collective commune here is calling, and I again thank goodness.
Stay safe, stay sane.
I will stay safe. I cannot guarantee the same part, but I will stay safe. And hopefully, we can get to chat day after. You know, Gary, if you're up to it. Election November 4th. That day after conversation will be phenomenal. I'm like, whoa.
That is. Weird. I make no promises about my emotional level.
Well, I'm just afraid, or probably thinking that we're not going to know the day after.
That would be the most positive outcome I can imagine.
Oh, all I can say is America is holding its breath right now.
Yeah.
Something's coming.
And we're going to turn as blue as this shirt before we are able to exhale again.
I fear, because anything decisive, I think, will spark violence.
And this is what kind of gets me. There's going to be, you do not know if there'll be protesting for something or protesting against something, but they're going to be protesting.
I do. Yeah. And I also fear violence. I know the Boogaloo guys have ammoed up for this.
And you know what? Believe it or not, African American women have bought so many guns, whether it's handguns, whatever kind of gun. I am not a gun person, because I believe that if you have a gun is the final choice. You have made up your mind. That's your final choice. And I always want to have another choice. I think gun owners, you've made a final choice. Whatever, defense you want to do, whatever, you've made a final choice when you have a gun, because that's what you will go for immediately.
Yeah, be prepared to use it if you're going to have one.
Exactly.
I was talking to an international audience.
Anybody, I'm not prepared to kill anybody. My grandfather was a marksman, and he tried to teach me. He was a King's African rifle, person. And he tried to teach all his grandchildren, and he believed my brain was broken because I'm left-handed. That's why I could shoot a gun. I cannot shoot. I do not want to shoot. I can write a very stern letter, But I am not interested in shooting anyone, but a lot of people have felt that they have to be prepared for after November the 3rd, and I hope it will never come to that moment. I have seen countries torn by civil war and civil unrest where they have to use their weapons like that, and I hope America never, 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 ever gets to that point.
I was talking with an international audience yesterday evening, and they were asking me about the possibility of violence. And I said, you guys in the rest of the world are under the impression that only racist conservatives have firearms. And they said, yes. And I said, that's not true. We've all got firearms. And they were like, oh.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing when I tell people, people have guns all up in their house, all over in their glove compartment.
Yeah, I was like, everybody's got. I say I don't, because like you, I'm not going to kill somebody with it. But that doesn't mean that I don't have other weaponry that I will kill somebody with.
Oh, yeah. An iron skillet goes a long.
Yep. If you get close enough to me that my cast iron skillet is going to brain you, then you've made your choice.
You have made your choice right there.
Okay, Elizabeth, I'm going to let you go attend to family, hearth, and home. And thank you. And maybe we'll check back in with you when we know what our results really have been, whether it's on the 4th or not. So.
Absolutely. I truly appreciate you, Gary.
And thank you for always thinking about me and the show.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay, so now we're in. That's not right. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, I turned you off. Wrong button.
Oh, that's an even wronger button. So for those of you listening to the audio only podcast, Gary is pressing a lot of really weird buttons on his thing.
Yeah, let me go fix this one. I know just what to do. It just takes a moment.
Well, we have 5 more minutes of show.
And
so now is a really great time to go over the upfronts. So if you are listening to the Triangle Talk Show, we can be found at our website, triangletalkshow.com, on every podcatcher out there in existence. And Gary has made a lovely list that I'm sure he will list as soon as I'm done. On Twitter, we are not Triangle Talk Show. We are at Talk Triangle. Same on Periscope. But on all the other social medias, don't at me. We are Triangle Talk Show, Facebook, YouTube, and definitely not Instagram.
Media is a plural word. I'm adding you, aren't I?
Yes, but the people say the social medias. So there you go.
People.
There's our upfront delivered at the end with 4 minutes of show to go. But of course, you already knew how to find us because you found us because you're listening or watching.
But there may be a better way. There may be an alternative you have not considered.
Yes, embrace the FOMO. Connect with Triangle Talk Show all the ways.
So, see this? I'm holding up the official Triangle Talk Show clock.
Yes, it is almost 7 o'clock in Gary's hasn't adjusted to daylight savings or not daylight savings. Are we standard now or are we daylight savings now?
We are standard time now. And now I'm going to officially adjust the official Triangle Talk Show
rolling back the clock by an hour because we are falling back by an hour this morning at 2 in the morning.
I forgot what minute we're in.
Or 1 in the morning the
57.
second time as it goes. We went from 1:59 till 1 a.m. It's great. Stay up. Watch that happen. Yes. I did. That's why I'm tired.
So I named the show Daylight Savings with an apostrophe Z.
You get to sleep more.
I wanted to as much wrong as I can out of protest, because first of all, I know it is daylight saving time, not savings time, apostrophe S or otherwise. And I am so opposed to the idea of doing this that I have dedicated myself to saying it wrong just to make people mad who are pedantic and say it's saving time. No, it's savings time.
I'm happy to be Arizona. I mean, if we take a vote on this, I'm going to go full Arizona. I'm done changing clocks.
Yeah.
It didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. And the crap about farmers, that's my favorite. So if you haven't heard that one of the people being blamed, or one of the groups being blamed for daylight saving time, are the farmers.
Savings.
Because they're saying we have to move the time around so farmers can have more daylight or whatever. Farmers get up before dawn, y'all. Farmers don't use daylight. Even when we do change the clocks, they're still getting up before dawn to go tend to their animals. So that's nonsense. It served a war purpose once, kind of, but not really. They thought it would, so they implemented it. It didn't really result in much savings of fuels being used to generate electricity could then be diverted to war effort. It didn't really result in much of that. We're not fighting that war. We don't use those fuels anyway. Can we stop it now, please?
Can we just adjust our lives a little bit so that if we want to have more activity during the limited wintertime daylight, well, we just put that activity when the light is available?
Yeah. So this is the time of year where I go to work in the dark and I come home from work in the dark, and I'm quite sure everybody else does too. You got to clear that with your employers, those of you who are still employed in a traditional 9-to-5 job, because if you want to have activity in the wintertime daylight, that's going to take place during prime employer working hours.
Yeah, we should all do,
no matter what you're doing with your clocks.
Do night jobs during the winter.
I actually like the winter. I take extra vitamin D to combat seasonal affective disorder with my doctor's permission, and I'm going to add that because I'm not giving medical advice. Go talk to your doctor, find out what your vitamin D levels are, work with them, get a plan.
This is the Jen and Gary show music.
But yes, I take extra vitamin D. I don't have seasonal affective disorder as a result, and or was seasonal affective depression. But it's not. And then I find it cozy. I just enjoy some, what are the daylight light bulbs, and snuggle up with a book. And in the past, when we weren't having a pandemic, lots of friends come over. Make the house a cozy and happy place. Put some logs on in the fireplace, like light up a fire. Have lots of hot cocoa.
Yeah, I
You don't have to be outside.
I'm just enjoying the music. I don't think I've ever had that seasonal affective disorder or
Not
whatever.
everybody does.
If I've had it, I haven't been aware of it.
It's for some people, it makes them very depressed when there's not enough light. Usually those people are stuck indoors. One of the beautiful benefits of me switching away from an indoor white collar career to my pink collar career that I have now is I'm outside during the day. So I get some natural sunlight from the sun. But yeah, it's a lot of people just stuck inside with fluorescent lights all the time, go to work in the dark and leave work in the dark. And it's depressing. It takes an emotional toll, but not just an emotional toll. It's a biochemical toll because you're usually low on vitamin D. Again, why you should talk to your doctor.
Yeah, I think the only thing that has consistently irritated me about the winter time of year is that the sun always seems to be in your eyes. It always seems to be hugging the horizon. And I always seem to be driving in that direction.
I highly recommend in the winter sunglasses. I wear more sunglasses in the winter than in the summer. Just because in the summer I can wear floppy hats and they provide the shade, but in the winter, sunglasses. People take off their sunglasses in the winter because it's just not, and I quote, the look. Man, sunglasses still work. Or as my charges like to say, outside glasses, because I am wearing right now my inside glasses. And for those of you on the audio-only podcast, you cannot see, but I do wear eyeglasses. So these are known as my inside glasses, and then my prescription sunglasses are my outside glasses.
I have a problem wearing sunglasses because I've got a lot of stuff in my car that I probably shouldn't be looking at when I'm driving, the ham radio stuff, and I can't see any of it when I've got sunglasses on.
So you're less distracted, and that's a problem.
Well, I've learned to wear hats with brims and stuff, and whatever I can to block the sun from hitting my eyes directly, and that seems to have worked for me.
Well, now that the music has stopped, it is time to say goodbye, at least for me, because I don't have much battery left.
And now, what is the Mickey Mouse theme? And now it's time to say goodbye
to all our family. M-I-C, see you real soon. K-E-Y. Why?
Because we like you.
M-O-U-S. No, I'm not doing this because we'll get sued by Disney.
Speaking of which, we are totally clear of all copyright complaints from the Warner Music Group. They slunk away like a skunk in the night. They didn't apologize. They didn't say anything. No emails. It just disappeared from my YouTube account saying, no. We have lots of entities are monetizing our previous shows for playing music, but none of them took us down. And I'm happy to let them get their 1.5 cents from the Triangle Talk Show. So no show next
weekend.
Because in theory, this time I'm going to the mountains, damn it, for sure. Unless I get sick again. But maybe a special show if we have an announcement, election results or something. I'll let you know I know that midweek appearances are rare for you because you don't have time, but I'll let you know and we'll see.
We shall see what we shall see.
In the meantime, you have been and continue to be
Nanny Jen of NannyCast.
And I am, it's this Mr. October. I need to change that. This is now
my birthday month.
Your best month of the year.
My month. By the way, don't at me about Christmas, okay? This is my birthday month, and we're not celebrating Christmas until after my birthday, which is Thanksgiving.
Your birthday is right on Thanksgiving?
Every 6 years.
Okay. That's right, because Thanksgiving wanders around.
Yeah. This year, no. But Still, I have a special affinity for Thanksgiving because of my birthday, and therefore I do not want Thanksgiving lost in the middle of Christmas. I understand that Christmas is a joyous occasion for most people. However, by doing that, you erase all of those of us with November birthdays, especially those of us with November birthdays close to Thanksgiving.
You're Jewish. You have no affinity for Christmas at all.
Oh, no, I love candy canes. I love candy canes and the idea that a fat man does breaking and entering and doesn't get shot by the police. And
Fat white man.
Yeah, and did I mention candy canes? And the little hats with the jingly bell? Those are fun.
I actually decorate the studio for Christmas, so look forward to that.
I mean, I get Hanukkah, so I get 8 presents to your, I don't know, however many show up under the tree. But I like candy canes. I like the for public consumption bit of Christmas. I love the smell of the fir trees that are the Christmas trees. I like the twinkly lights. Those are great. I could take or leave the baby Jesus getting some really strange smelling herbs and sleeping with a sheep. I don't care for that, but the rest of it's great.
Yeah, I ignore the whole thing best I possibly can.
And the Netflix show Klaus, Klaus, the movie, that's a good one.
And as I understand it, all of the Charlie Brown Christmas stuff is only on HBO or something?
Which I have access
Apple
to,
Music?
but I've never been a Charlie Brown fan in general.
Yeah.
So
Well, I haven't gone searching them out, but now that they're only available by pay, it seems totally un-American.
But I'm gonna reiterate: if you have Netflix and you have not seen Klaus, Klaus yet, it's a tearjerker like Coco. Which, by the way, today, Dia de los Muertos, Coco is going to be your tearjerker for today. Klaus is your tearjerker for next one. Grab a towel, sit down, bawl your eyes out while you watch a great animated movie.
Episode 120, Daylight Savings, Fall Back and Standby, November 1st. Welcome to November, everybody. On the Triangle Talk Show. Over.
And out.